the Fit and Healthy Athlete Podcast. Debbie Potts is here to help you burn fat, optimize health, and enhance your performance in life as you age. We'll explore metabolic health, holistic health, and actionable insights with guest experts and deep dives into health topics. Whether you're an athlete or just looking to thrive, let's discover how to become your best self. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the Coach Debbie Potts Show, the space where we stop chasing symptoms and start solving for root causes so you can rebuild, rewire, and reignite your most vibrant self in midlife and beyond. Today's episode is another Debbie solo deep dive rabbit hole into one of the most important and misunderstood pieces of the metabolic aging puzzle: plant protein versus animal protein, gut health, nutrition for improving the aging process. I will be covering animal versus plant protein, not anything against being vegan or plant-based. I just wanted to point out some research and how what protein we choose impacts our muscle health, our hormones, and metabolism. I also want to touch on the hidden world of anti-nutrients and where they matter more after age 40, and touch on leucine that I've been diving into, and anabolic resistance and the midlife muscle loss, how to avoid it, and fiber versus polyphenols that I've been curious about as well for the gut microbiome. So just a little bit of this and that to help us create our ideal FutureYou Blueprint protocol to help you thrive as you age without getting stuck in food fear or confusion. So grab a notebook, go for a walk, or sit in your infrared sauna and listen in as we are about to go a little bit deeper. So just to review on all these different topics: why protein quality becomes non-negotiable after age 40. As we enter our middle age, our metabolism becomes less responsive to the same foods, same habits that worked in our 20s and 30s. As I always say, what is insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, the same program, and expect different results. We need to understand what is happening as we age at a cellular level. So we've been going into different episodes talking about hormones: estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, DHA. They all decline. And this means your body must become less efficient, and preserving muscle is more challenging. But we don't have to say this is just normal part of aging. We can really do something about this, not just supplement with hormone replacement, but how we train, how we eat, and our lifestyle habits. Also, cortisol often rises due to chronic stress, poor sleep, blood sugar instability, and this all breaks down our muscle. We've been diving into insulin resistance as it increases as we age, which makes it much harder to burn fat, to improve recovery, and to stay lean. Mitochondria output drops. At a cellular level, we need to look at, are we creating enough energy? Could we do better? How can we reduce oxidative stress and improve healing? And then another big topic I keep going back to: stomach acid and digest enzyme production as we age. Digestion and protein breakdown are something we've been talking about, and that connects to the vagus nerve. But all of this leads to anabolic resistance. This is where your muscles become, I hate the word deaf, but saying we're just not able to listen and hear the signals to protein unless it's derived it's not the right word. Let me think. Delivered with the right amino acids and in the right amount. I've been talking about the leucine threshold a lot and trying to share that on my Instagram and YouTube videos. why you need more leucine-rich protein per meal, around that 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine within all those other essential amino acids to trigger muscle protein synthesis if you are over age 40. And this is why I want to go over plant versus animal protein, because we need to understand the truth about what your muscles really need. So if we compare animal versus plant protein, let's go animal protein. It's a complete essential amino acid profile, EAAs. It's high in leucine, the trigger for muscle growth. High digestibility, which is a score called DIAAS, digestibility score near 1.0. Animal protein is more efficient for mitochondrial repair and recovery, and minimal volume required, say about 30 grams or more per meal. Rich in supportive nutrients as B12, heme iron, zinc, creatine, and carnitine. Now, the other side, plant protein, the challenge is you're often missing one or more of these essential amino acids. Plant protein is lower in leucine. It's average of 1 to 1.5 grams of leucine per 25 grams of protein. Plant protein has lower digestibility score of 0.6 to 0.8. And plant protein often comes with anti-nutrients that block absorption. And plant proteins require 2 to 3 times the volume to hit the same muscle protein synthesis threshold I've been trying to go over in my YouTube videos. And plant protein gives you a lot higher carbohydrate load, more fiber, but can be more digestive burden. More is not always better, right? So to match the leucine in 1 scoop of whey or 4 or 6 ounces of steak, you need 3 to 4 cups of quinoa, or 3 cups of lentils, or 1,200 plus calories of plant-based protein. That is a lot of gut stress. And especially if you're already dealing with midlife digestion problems, bloating, inflammation, all connected to poor vagal tone, we are going to have GI stress for sure. So understanding how important that part of it, I think, is something that we need to dive into individually to figure out what are some options for you. If you choose to be plant-based protein, we may want to look at some better options, and maybe that's the Body Health Perfect Aminos and adding in, because if you don't want to change more animal protein, you're going to have to supplement, and taking supplements because you're not going to get that from your food unless you want to have excessive carbohydrates and excessive anti-nutrients and more. So I want you to, I'm going to create an image. I'm just writing down this note to create this chart because I think it's important to visually see the differences of the two side by side. Now, when we are looking at anti-nutrients, this is where most clean eating, when people say they eat healthy or they eat clean, or I went to the doctor yesterday just to get an annual checkup because we pay for it with insurance. Thought, oh, I might as well go and get what labs I can get under insurance. The doctor asked me if I'm having vegetables every day. And sometimes I don't, but I just said, yes, I am. She didn't ask me, are you eating a nutrient-dense real food plan? Or are you eating enough protein to help avoid muscle loss because you're 54 years old? Or my husband's doctor, that he saw this new doctor, and he was trying to get him to be plant-based, which is kind of my getting fired up to do this episode because they were advocating his personal opinion, the doctor's opinion, that plant-based was much better than animal-based food plan, and my husband should be eating plant-based if he wants to save his liver. And really looking at the liver can be inflamed if you have parasites, H. pylori, bacteria overgrowth. So it's really frustrating to have people pushing their personal plan, but this is kind of what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying anti-plant-based. I just want you to understand when you choose to be plant-based, you need to be aware of what you might be missing. And this is why I'm saying if you're eating healthy, clean eating, I always ask, what does that mean to you? Because we need to understand the role of anti-nutrients in plant foods and how you can choose to eat plants, but you need to properly prepare them, because anti-nutrients are actual natural compounds found in plants that serve as plant mechanisms. They are meant to deter insects, fungus, and even digestion. But in our own bodies, anti-nutrients from these compounds in plants can block mineral absorption. They can disrupt our gut lining. They can trigger inflammation. They can impair protein digestion and increase mitochondrial stress. So I want to walk through the big 5 anti-nutrients. They're found in grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds. These are phytates. And phytates bind minerals as zinc, magnesium, calcium, and iron. Phytates interfere with hormone production, thyroid health, and detoxification. And then oxalates. Oxalates are found in spinach, beets, almonds, Swiss chard, cacao. So all these healthy foods, I think it's everything in moderation. Not too much, not too little, but properly prepared. Or if you're more reactive to them, pay attention. Because oxalates, if too much, cause a problem because they can bind calcium. And this can lead to joint pain, kidney stones, as a family member just had a huge kidney stone. Fibromyalgia. I never know how I should say that. Fibromyalgia. Those are more just joint pain symptoms that can be related to oxalates. And they can be a major problem for those with mold toxicity, poor bile flow, and or mitochondria dysfunction. So oxalates, if you eat a lot of spinach, those people that were still doing these superfood smoothies with tons of spinach and you're putting almond milk in it and all these almond milk, what do people put? I guess they put in lots of fruit and then they put in powders, but just looking at if you're doing a lot of smoothies still, you might want to pay attention to your ingredients. Now, the other anti-nutrient is found in beans, lentils, peanuts, wheat, and nightshades. That's a lot of different foods. These are lectins, and lectins are trouble for a lot of people. They damage gut lining. They increase intestinal permeability, leaky gut. And lectins are linked to joint pain, skin flares, brain fog, bloating, and food sensitivities. So I just avoid beans, legumes, lentils. I just think they're not good. They're not good on my body. I don't really like them, so I've avoided. And quinoa, I hate all that stuff. I don't even like it. So it's not just the anti-nutrients. I just don't like them. Peanuts are often high in mold, but the high in lectins. And wheat is what I avoid. Not just gluten, but I avoid wheat. And nightshades. So working on what you're eating, I think, is helpful. And maybe just do a food elimination plan and then reintroduce foods, see how you feel. Now, another anti-nutrient are called sapoins. They're found in quinoa and legumes, and they can disrupt gut cell membranes and cause immune flares and worsen histamine sensitivity. So if you're eating a lot of plant-based food, as you're not eating any animal, I find a lot of people that are plant-based are eating too many legumes and quinoa and lentils and beans and spinach and having all these problems. And I look at their blood chemistry panel and ideally a micronutrient test and go, whoa, you've got too many anti-nutrients and your minerals are all low and we need to make some changes because I don't want you to have to take a zillion different supplements, right? We want get our nutrients from our food with proper digestion, but we need to eat nutrient-dense whole foods that don't cause more problems. Another anti-nutrients category, tannins. They're found in tea, red wine, and legumes. So a reason I don't like legumes, they're high in tannins, high in saponins. You get all these phytates as well. So tannins can inhibit non-heme iron absorption. So if you're plant-based and you're having a lot of tea, you're having a lot of legumes, it's inhibiting non-heme iron absorption, so it can increase hypothyroidism, mood, fatigue. But how about anemia, right? So if we're not able to absorb iron because we're not eating red meat, so you need to work on your food plan. Because anti-nutrients, they can be more problematic if you're over age 40. You have low stomach acid, H. pylori, poor vagal tone, if you're recovering from burnout, mold illness, autoimmunity, and what if you're estrogen dominant or histamine sensitive? Anti-nutrients become more of an issue for you. So understanding the why is important. And looking at what are you eating now, what can we tweak, swap out, and do different, or maybe you need a proper preparation. Okay, so I think looking at what people, as Dr. Ben Bickman, I love learning from, and Sean Wells is always doing a good information on his site. But Ben talks about muscle is your metabolic engine, and the more muscle you have, the better your insulin sensitivity. As Dr. Ben Bickman is all about insulin and improving insulin sensitivity. But as we learned also from Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, blood sugar control, mitochondrial efficiency, and longevity with insulin resistance is all improved when we have more muscle. So the more muscle you have, the better health outcomes you're going to have. If you are not building and preserving muscle in middle age, you're going to speed up aging faster. And not fasting, but you're going to speed up the aging process, and your body, it's going to become more metabolically inflexible and not as efficient at burning fat. And so we need to look at anti-nutrients. They're not inherently bad, but they do require proper preparation and a healthy gut to handle them. So Sean Wells has a great anti-nutrient guide you can find on his Sean Wells website as he outlines how to properly soak, sprout, ferment, and pressure cook to reduce plant stressors, and why raw smoothies, daily spinach, and almond flour overkill can become a metabolic kryptonite. And that's why I always want to look at what people are eating, because when they say they're eating healthy, just because they're real food, is it healthy for your body? And let's look at the whole picture and investigate your labs and look at, do we have signs of malnourishment and poor minerals, and looking at gut health markers. Then we need to look at what else might be blocking your gut and what fuels it. Many of us taught, this is an ongoing debate a lot of places, I'm still not sold on fiber is all that it is supposed to be for everybody. It is key to a healthy microbiome, but not for everybody. And what about polyphenols? Because it's not the full story, because fiber feeds certain bacteria, especially bifidobacteria and Firmicutes, and it helps produce short-chain fatty acids as butyrate, which I'm low in, and supports stool regularity, gut motility. But what I want you to understand, I'm not saying fiber is bad, but it might not be good right now for someone with bloating, with gas-producing bacteria, and over-fermenting with people with small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, IBS, or even mold clients. So when we suggest fiber requirements for everyone, it's not ideal for certain populations. What else can you do to improve your microbiome? Fiber does matter, but polyphenols may be the key for microbiome resilience, especially if you're over 40 with a damaged gut lining and dealing with toxic load recovery. So instead of fiber loading with chia seeds, oat bran, getting these super smoothies in, I want you to look at other options and focus on maybe cooked roots as carrots, parsnips, turnips, which I don't know who does that, but some people might like that. Also polyphenol-rich herbs as rosemary, thyme, oregano, turmeric, berries and pomegranate, good this time of year, green tea, matcha, and red cabbage and red onions in cooked form may be a little bit easier to digest for you. So polyphenols are found in the colorful plants, herbs, teas, spices, and berries that I just went over, but they also act as prebiotics and antioxidants. And polyphenols selectively feed keystone species as Akkermansia and Faecalibacterium pronacea, however you say that. And if you look at, like I just did my GI map, my Akkermansia was low, but a lot of times it shows low on people's GI maps. But looking at the other keystone species, are we feeding them enough? And we want to improve mucosal lining. We want to reduce inflammation and protect mitochondria with polyphenols. So polyphenols, I find, are better tolerated if you have an inflamed gut and if you're just more sensitive. So while fiber is important, it's not for people that have some gut issues or toxic load issues. Okay, so let's talk about protocol, how to build the FutureYou Blueprint. It's very individualized, but let's focus at least on protein. I say 30 isn't enough. I think as we're middle-aged, we need to hit 40 to 50 grams per meal. And within that, remember, you need the leucine threshold, which is the 2.53 grams of leucine per that 50 grams of protein. Now, animal protein is ideal unless contraindicated for some reason, because if you are plant-based, you need to tweak a little bit and supplement with essential amino acids, as I use perfect aminos and getting enough leucine in there. So I want to point out 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight per day. But say you're trying to get 100 grams or more protein a day, it's not accumulative for that day, which means if I'm trying to stimulate muscle protein synthesis, I can't do that with, say, I'm having a beef stick that's 7 grams, and then I'm having an egg that's 6 grams an hour later. And then maybe 3 hours later, I have bone broth for, say, that's 10 grams protein. So I can't calculate my 40, 50 grams all throughout the day. I need it per meal. So there's a dose that we need to look at to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. So think about that 40, 50 gram. Maybe you're doing 2 meals, ideally 3 meals. I typically do 2 meals a day, but now I'm trying to do perfect aminos upon waking, before bed, and post-workout. So I'm getting that ideally real food, but I can't eat that much protein, preferably from meat, without being so overly full and satiated. And I just found out my stomach acid is not optimal because H. pylori was still a little higher on my labs. And so I need to do a pylori X protocol again, a little bit higher, and eliminate that and then improve my stomach acid. Because right now, even though I am eating protein meals, I'm not digesting and getting the aminos from there. So now I'm really focusing on being consistent with perfect aminos to get my pre-digested protein in these tablets, even though they're chalky. They're not great, but I am important to myself. My muscle health is a priority. Okay, so to get that, you need at least 100 grams of protein per day, but it needs to be in doses, 40 grams, say at once, not accumulative 100 grams protein the entire day. So you can't graze. I want you to get a meal, no eating, 3-4 hours, another meal, no eating, 3-4 hours, and then another meal, something like that. Next, remember you need to reduce the anti-nutrient load. Properly prepare your food. You need to soak, sprout, or ferment your foods that have the plant-based that are high in anti-nutrients. You need to cook or pressure cook it. Rotate your foods. Avoid raw spinach overload. Test oxalates. You can test lectins, and we can test gut integrity. And third section here, supporting digestion. We need to restore stomach acid, as I'm working on, and supporting my bile flow, and using digest enzymes as I order again from Body Health. Their digest enzymes are really good. Or biooptimizers is another good. They're mass zymes. And always use a discount code. Never pay full price for anything because there's always a discount code. Now, for digestion, you for sure need to strengthen your vagus nerve. Now, I've been doing the breath work, taking breath work before I eat, rest and digest rituals, but for me, it's not enough. I'm using Pulsetto. It's a vagus nerve stimulator, and making sure I use that to strengthen my vagus nerve because I still need to support bile flow and fat digestion. So working on my bile is important to help my markers based on my lab test investigation that I'll do in a separate episode. But poor bile flow is more related to stomach acid for me and vagus nerve above that. So order of operations. Now, strength training, which I prioritize, lifting heavy 2 to 4 times a week. I want you to include recovery in your workout schedule each week. Getting in your zone 2 peak fat max cardio. We need to test that because most of you do not do peak fat max zone 2. You're in zone 3 tempo. It should feel comfortable, easy. And then protein timing. As I talked about, I do it post-workout. Add in the perfect aminos or have a whey shake with some frozen blueberries for some carbs if it was more carb burning workout. I want you to train your muscle as it is medicine. Brushing your teeth every day. Make it a priority to go to the gym each week. And next part of your blueprint, feed your microbiome smartly. I don't believe we should just fiber bombs every day. Not everyone does well with excessive fiber. So I want you to make sure you're adding in targeted polyphenols we talked about and supporting these keystone species we can test on your GI stool test, which I think it was $370 something. I just paid for it. And it came back in 3 weeks. So good to test and not guess what you need to do for your microbiome. And I want you to avoid excessive fermentation if dealing with bloating or people with mold. So again, testing and not guessing. A stool test as GI Map or Genova Diagnostics, a Dutch hormone panel, organic acids test called OATS, Pinoy metabolism testing, and then just getting your blood chemistry panel, which the doctors are not testing ones that we want to look at. So don't test with your doctor or pay for any labs that are not covered by insurance because they charge way too much, like $1,000 more than you need to. So let's order what blood chemistry you need for under $100. Like insulin is $15. You can do all that on Rupa Health. I can order them for you, or Ulta Labs. You could do yourself. Now, you can use all this data to fine-tune your protein, your gut, your mitochondria, and improve your metabolic flexibility. That's what I'm doing. I just did for myself to check in where I am, make sure I'm doing what I should be doing, and knowing how to tweak and course correct. You don't know what you don't know. So if you're doing all this stuff, especially working on taking all these mitochondria supplements and working on these longevity supplements, they're probably not going to really work if you have issues, as I just found out I had elevated H. pylori, inhibiting my protein digestion and inhibiting my bile to be released. So I have poor fat metabolism. And so I need to make sure I get all the order of operations work in my digestive system because that leads to gut dysbiosis and more problems downstream. So really knowing what you should do as an individual instead of just guessing based on what you're reading on your social media reels you're paying attention to and podcasts, but knowing that your symptoms are not random. They're your own body's feedback. And when we're in middle age, our metabolism isn't broken. Don't blame the aging process. Understand it's just different. And when you understand how protein, plants, your digestion, and gut resiliency all work together, they help unlock your future you blueprint. So we want to build strength, clarity, and build a metabolism that works for you, not against you. So if you are ready to create your personalized program based on your symptoms, stress, and your labs, schedule a future you strategy session with me today. Head to my website, debbiepotts.net, or you can look at just sending me an email, coachdebbiepotts@iCloud, because the future isn't waiting, and neither should you. So stop waiting to do something different, and let's take ownership of our health today. Because if you're over 40 and you're still confused about protein, digestion, gut health, we need to figure out what is best for you. And all the marketing campaigns from the food companies out there and the supplement companies, they're trying to sell you a product. So I want you to understand why plant proteins may be sabotaging your gains and your gut. What are those 5 major anti-nutrients that we reviewed today that could block your digestion and your minerals? And what happens to protein absorption after middle age as digestion starts to decline, and connect that to up north? And we've talked many episodes how to stimulate muscle protein synthesis with the leucine-rich meals, covering why polyphenols versus fiber for your microbiome health may be interesting for you to investigate, and how to design that future you blueprint protocol for you, working on your protein goals, your gut health, and just building strength. So whether you're athlete, health optimizer, or just trying to navigate through middle age as your hormones are changing, understand that you need to stop guessing and start building a more resilient middle age metabolism so you can improve how you age. So check out Kion, the unsweetened whey protein. I would use, you can see my code, Coach Debbie Potts work, BioOptimizers, digestion supplements there. They're masszymes for digest enzymes. And I do love their magnesium blend at BioOptimizers. And they have a new sleep one I've been taking at night that's blue. And then my other favorites are from Perfect Aminos, or from Body Health as a company. And their Perfect Aminos I take, and their digest enzymes. So remember, don't just take different supplements because that's what you heard are good, as I'm just telling you now. I would prefer you to get a personalized program with someone to figure out what to do. So let me know if you have questions. I think understanding why your muscle is a metabolic engine and how anabolic resistance just makes it harder to build muscle as we age. And really understanding the leucine threshold theory to how we need to trigger muscle protein synthesis, understanding anti-nutrients and polyphenols, and how we need to individualize this. So let me know if you have more questions after middle age. Why does our digestive physiology change? Our stomach acid declines 20 to 40%. Our pancreatic enzymes drop. Our bile production slows down, which is what I just found I had. And gut motility is just slower. But when the acid, stomach acid, and your digestive enzymes that are supposed to come from your pancreas and your gallbladder is to release bile, but all that decrease, we have more problems downstream leading to bloating, mineral deficiencies as iron, zinc, calcium, magnesium, protein malabsorption, and more chance to get leaky gut. And so our gut has less resilience as we get older, and it can't handle all these anti-nutrients. So if you have low stomach acid, as I have, the phytates might bind your minerals even more. And lectins can resist breakdown and irritate your gut wall lining. Those oxalates can crystallize in your tissues and cause more kidney and joint issue. And the other one we talk about, saponins can increase leaky gut. And plant proteins themselves become just harder to digest. So we need to understand that stomach acid is the first line of defense. Without it, these anti-nutrients slip through undigested, causing inflammation and malabsorption. And if you are having chronic stress, burnout, internal body breakdown that I had, mold illness, or autoimmunity, all this together, there's a theme. Decreased digestion ability, you have weakened digestion, impaired detox pathways, and chronic inflammation. Because all these conditions can connect back again to low stomach acid, low DAO, which is histamine intolerance, sluggish bile flow, impaired phase 2 liver detox, dysbiosis, and more overactive immune response. So these anti-nutrients just add more fuel to the fire, triggering more immune activation. They increase leaky gut. They block nutrient absorption that we need to heal and raise inflammation, as well as irritating an already sensitive GI tract. So this is why many healthy foods that are from plants, as nuts, beans, spinach, quinoa, can make certain people feel worse as they are in recovery. So sometimes we just need to heal and repair and then reintroduce those foods. And then for us middle-aged females, if you have estrogen dominance, so you have high estrogen, it will slow bile flow and reduce fat and toxic clearance. And poor bile flow actually allows oxalates and lectins to irritate the gut. And estrogen increases copper absorption, which phytates even make a mineral imbalance worse. And then our liver detox is already overburdened, but anti-nutrients increase the load on the liver. Then we can always look at histamine sensitivity. If you have lectins and saponins that increase mast cell activation, your gut inflammation reduces this DAO histamine clearing enzyme. And we have dysbiosis, increasing histamine producing bacteria. And then oxalates trigger mast cells. So we just have more bloating, more migraines, more anxiety, more insomnia, more rashes, more gut reactivity. So the anti-nutrients are not the enemy. I'm just pointing out what's really going on inside the gut for some people as we age, as our hormones and stressors accumulate and our gut health can be not ideal. As we get more digestion, inflammation increases, these anti-nutrients just block critical minerals and stall the muscle building and stress the mitochondria and disrupt hormones and gut issues and all this. So I think we need to understand when we talk about hormone replacement and post-menopause, they're not going to solve everything because yes, estrogen changes, but it can be related to all this other stuff. So if you're taking hormone replacement and still struggling, it might not be the magic potion by itself. As I'm taking T3, I'm taking progesterone, I'm taking estrogen. I have a little sticker put on my belly. And I think we need to understand how the body works together. So remember, we're trying to restore metabolic harmony. We're bringing the body from metabolic chaos to connect everything together, to work with innate intelligence, restore homeostasis, and then create metabolic harmony. So let me know if you have questions. Love to hear from you. Head to Coach Debbie Potts at iCloud.com to drop me an email or check out the website and set up a discovery call over there on debbiepotts.net. Thanks for listening, and check out Coach Debbie Potts' YouTube channel. Hit subscribe and you'll get lots of visual PowerPoint presentations from me if you want to go down some more rabbit holes to learn how to be the best version of yourself in the future. Hey, before we wrap up, I just thought of something I feel that I should correlate together. How we have lower stomach acid as we age could be related to H. pylori, low vagal tone, and the minerals that we lose. And plus, if you're doing a plant-based food plan or eating a lot of plants, how mineral deficiencies can be one of the hidden engines of fatigue I'm seeing more and more with clients. Muscle loss, thyroid dysfunction, and slow metabolism in midlife. And the number one root cause that almost no one talks about, poor digestion. And that's why I keep coming back to this. If we have low vagus nerve, poor digestion, low stomach acid, you're going to have weak bile and low digest enzymes, and you're going to end up with an inflamed gut. So this becomes 10 times worse if you have H. pylori. If you have anti-nutrient overload from plant foods, low vagus nerve, chronic stress, mold, burnout, autoimmunity, and estrogen imbalance. So I really feel that I needed to go a little bit deeper into this topic and break down this mineral story before we finish. Stomach acid controls how well you and I absorb metal ions and alkaline minerals. So when stomach acid is low, the minerals do not ionize properly. This means you can eat them, but you are not going to use them. And if we don't get those minerals as iron, guess what? we're going to have low iron levels on our labs, and you might experience a lot of fatigue and different symptoms of low iron, especially heme iron. But let's connect this with low stomach acid. If you have low stomach acid, you have impaired iron separation from the food you are eating. You have increased iron deficiency anemia, and you have lower oxygen delivery, fatigue, and poor VO2. So H. pylori makes this dramatically worse by neutralizing stomach acid. Or what if you're on PPI medication or antacids? You're not going to get your minerals. As zinc. Zinc is required acid, stomach acid, to ionize. So if you have low HCl, which means low stomach acid, from low zinc, it's a vicious cycle because low zinc causes low stomach acid. Low stomach acid causes low zinc. So it's a vicious cycle. And if we don't have zinc, we have poor human production. If we have low zinc, we have a weakened immune system. Impaired thyroid conversion, we need zinc. Poor wound healing, hair loss, low digestive enzyme production. Zinc is one of the most depleted minerals in clients with low stomach acid or PPI medication, H. pylori, or over-the-counter antacids. Zinc. We can see that on your labs of alkaline phosphate. We can see different zinc tests. Now, magnesium is a biggie. If we have low stomach acid, we have poor magnesium dissociation, which means anti-nutrients bind magnesium tightly and reduce our absorption by 60%. So if you're struggling with a lot of muscle cramps, anxiety, constipation, poor sleep, insulin resistance, high cortisol, and even if you're taking a lot of magnesium in your magnesium-rich foods, it's connected back to low stomach acid. Remember when I'm talking about low stomach acid, it's all the reasons for it. If you have H. pylori, that's too elevated. If you're on antacids, PPIs, it's low, it's not having enough stomach acid, right? We need a more acidic environment for all this to happen. Now, calcium is a biggie as well. Well, they all are biggie. Calcium absorption drops when stomach acid is low. So combine that with phytates and oxalates, with people doing too much anti-nutrients, calcium remains bound and unabsorbed. So over time, I can see bone loss, muscle switching symptoms, PMS, poor nerve signaling, because calcium absorption drops when you don't have enough stomach acid. Now, selenium is critical for thyroid T4 to T3 conversion, but it's also critical for glutathione production and antioxidant protection. So low stomach acid, plus you have dysbiosis, you're going to struggle probably with poor selenium uptake, connecting to more thyroid stalls and metabolism being sluggish, slow. The other minerals to look at, copper, manganese, and trace minerals. These all depend on having an acidic environment and proper bile flow. So if your digestion is not strong, these minerals stay locked in food fibers and pass through your body unabsorbed. And these trace minerals support our collagen, hormones, antioxidant enzymes, brain function, and energy production. So we need to have good stomach acid, but we need to have good vagus nerve. We need good vagal tone. We need good stomach acid to have good pancreas function to release enzymes, for the bile to release from the gallbladder, and to get our nutrients from our food we're eating. So if we have excess plant compounds as phytates, oxalates, lectins, tannins, they all bind to minerals and block absorption. So if we have low vagus nerve activity, poor vagal tone, plus you have low stomach acid, plus you're on a plant-based food plan with excessive anti-nutrients, we're going to have even more problems. Because if you already have low stomach acid, the phytates bind, we just went over iron, zinc, calcium, magnesium. Oxalates bind calcium and magnesium, leading to kidney stones and joint pain. And then tannins inhibit iron absorption. Lectins inflame the gut, reducing absorption even more. So those people just eating these healthy salads every day, you might be feeling worse, not better on that food plan. Then the vagal tone we keep talking about, because the vagus nerve, as you already know, stomach acid output is controlled by the vagus nerve. Pancreatic enzymes, bile flow, motility, and blood flow to the gut. Just to review, get this in your head, when vagal tone is low from chronic stress, trauma history, even as a child, mold illness, burnout, your gut cannot digest or absorb or assimilate nutrients if the vagus nerve is not functioning. And this leads to what's called functional malnutrition, even when you are eating perfectly. Low vagal tone means to me you probably have low stomach acid, sluggish bile, and fat malabsorption, which I have those both. And I'm doing all the stuff I'm supposed to do. That's why I'm doing Pulsetto. Now, poor enzyme secretion, slow motility, dysbiosis, higher inflammation, all connected to low vagal tone. And then our minerals never get fully extracted from the food we're eating. They bypass right through. And then if you're like me, the H. pylori, it wasn't high, but I just did 8 weeks of pylori X supplement before I did my GI map. And the H. pylori was still kind of a lower level, but just too high for me to see the downstream impact, how it's correlated. But H. pylori suppresses stomach acid by increasing ammonia and urease activity. And this dramatically reduces absorption of your iron, zinc, magnesium, calcium, B12, and selenium. It also damages these cells in your stomach acid, the parietal cells, and this creates long-term HCl shutdown. So this is why so many middle-aged women and men that have H. pylori also show chronic fatigue, low thyroid, slow metabolism, insomnia, anxiety, hair loss, muscle loss, constipation, cold hands and feet. I've had all that for a long time, and I didn't know my H. pylori was still there because I haven't done a GI map for a few years, and I've started doing these tests back in 2013. So I've done pylori X. I must be just more prone to it with my background of chronic stress disease, and so understanding how more tendency to have suppression of stomach acid reduces absorption of iron, zinc, magnesium, calcium, B12, selenium, and how it impacts. I have not so much chronic fatigue, but maybe you have chronic fatigue. My thyroid's low. I have slow metabolism. I don't have insomnia. I don't have anxiety. I don't have hair loss, I don't think. Muscle loss is always my challenge, trying to gain muscle. I don't have constipation, but that's always a big red flag. People, if you have thyroid problems, you often have low motility, constipation, and cold hands and feet. So the big picture, as you age, and if you're chronically stressed, chronic inflammation, you are losing the digestive capacity to handle fiber-heavy meals, raw vegetables, high oxalate foods, beans, nuts and seeds, large plant protein loads. So your mineral requirements actually go up, but your absorption goes down. And this mismatch, you're going to have more symptoms. So the bottom line, if you have low stomach acid, H. pylori, mold, chronic inflammatory response syndrome called SIRS, burnout, autoimmunity, low vagal tone, high anti-nutrient foods, or maybe just middle-age hormone shifts, you might be struggling with iron levels, zinc, magnesium, calcium, selenium, copper, trace minerals, and this will all impact metabolism, thyroid function, muscle building, energy, mood, sleep, stress resilience, skin, hair, hormones, detoxification. So your body needs to be restored. So if you're over 40, stressed, inflamed, struggling with these gut hormone issues, if you're blaming it all on menopause or middle age, we need to look at the why, not just treat with thinking it's one thing. Your body works together. You're losing minerals every day, not because you're not eating them, you're not absorbing them. And I want to review what blocks mineral absorption. So again, low stomach acid, higher stomach pH is not good. Don't take those antacids, PPIs. They were only given out to be given out by the FDA regulated, FDA regulations for 2 weeks, not years. H. pylori, anti-nutrients, your vagus nerve, your bile, your enzymes, hormones. We want to look at the whole you and get fit and healthy from the inside out. So I just wanted to add that in, but minerals are important, and we need to understand even more why we can't out-supplement poor lifestyle habits, but nutrient density, nutrition is more, I think, digestion. And all of this together is important to create your ideal future self. So I'm calling it the FutureYou Blueprint. So I will look forward to hearing from you, and let me know your questions, comments, and concerns.
Thanks for listening to the Fit and Healthy Athlete Podcast. Coach Debbie Potts draws from decades of experience. Ready to optimize your health? Visit www.debbiepotts.net for a discovery call. Find her on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook at Coach Debbie Potts. To support the show, like, rate, and review. See you next time.